Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. It's Tuesday, time to talk about some new releases coming out this Friday, July 28th. There's about 500 albums coming out this week. I got 14 on the list for today. There's a bunch of links down below. Make sure you check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that we put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you go check all that out. Of course, if you enjoy the episode, make sure you give me a little thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. Like I said in the intro, there's about 500 albums coming out this week. I'm only going to talk about 14 though, so if there's something I don't talk about on the show today, make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to picking up. And like always, if you're unable to find any of these in your local brick and mortar stores, I'll put links down below. They should all be available online. So the first album is one that I've waited for a long time to finally have on vinyl. And now that's getting released, it's a little too pricey for me. I spent a lot on records over the last couple of weeks. So I'll have to hold off and maybe grab this one at a later date. But this is the Rolling Stones 40 Licks, released back in 2002. This is a 4 LP set. It's going to run you about $70 online. So this is a compilation of 40 of the biggest tracks spanning the Rolling Stones' career, well, I guess up until 2002. From the beginning of their career until 2002, and it also included, I think it was 4 extra tracks that were unreleased in 2002 when this album first came out. This is going to be a great release. It's not, like I said, it's 4 LP set. It's going to run you about $70. I spent a lot on vinyl lately, so I'm going to have to hold off on getting this one. I will say that this is going to be on black vinyl. I know it doesn't make a lot of difference to really probably anyone else out there. I think they should have done a colored version of this, especially since earlier this year they reissued the Rolling Stones box set, all in colored vinyl. This one kind of cool on a red vinyl, I think, but maybe we'll see something later on down the line for this release. And then this week you've also got the expanded version of Impera by Ghost coming out. This was released back in 2022. It was actually I think it was my number one album of that year when this came out. I absolutely love this album. This is the album that really finally got me into Ghost after I had multiple people over the last couple of years trying to get me into them, and for one reason or another, I never really checked them out. I checked out Impera when it was released. I was really kind of blown away by it. This is an interesting box set, though. So, Impera was their 5th studio album. This is a 3 LP, 1 7-inch box set. It's going to run you, I think on Amazon it's like $192 or $193. I've seen it listed in a couple of my local record stores at about $215 to $220. So it's definitely pricey for a 1 LP. I mean, it's not really 1 LP, but it's a 1 album box set. So this is kind of like, I guess they're packaging this like the definitive version of Impera. So LP1 is Impera. Well, so I guess LP1 and 2 is all together. Impera is disc 1, and then disc 2 is Live from the Ministry EP. But those they're packaged together. Really nice looking die cut gatefold. It looks pretty sweet. It's kind of pricey though, I think, for what you're getting in there. So you got that. You're also getting a Phantomime, which was just released, last month or the month before. You got that, and then there's a unreleased version of Stay. It's a cover. It's going to be that's the one that's on the 7-inch. There's just an etching on the B side of the 7-inch. So you're really only getting, I think, 1 track that's really kind of unreleased in this package for like $200. It looks cool. It also comes with the normal kind of trinkets and stuff that you get in a lot of these box sets. It has there's a wax seal kit, there's ghost candles, and then there's a 22-page book. So, like I said, candles, seal kit, that kind of stuff no one's really going to ever use or really check out. I don't know. Like I said, I love the album. Phantomime is a great album. Phantomime is one of my favorite albums of the year so far. $200, man. I think this is really kind of geared towards like the really big die-hard Ghost fans. There are a couple other really big box sets coming out this week. You got the Grateful Dead, RFK Stadium, Washington, June 10th, 1973. This is a big 8 LP set. So this was just released earlier this year. And I think that was the first time it had been released. Prior to that, there have been parts of this show that have been released over the years, but never has the whole show been released. This is a great set. It's one of the more iconic Grateful Dead shows of the 70s. They do this long, like hour plus long, blistering encore. They had part of the Allman Brothers band, who was on tour with them at that time, come out and did the encore with them. Like I said, it's a great show. I've never heard the entire thing. I've only heard bits and pieces of it, and I'm not even the biggest Grateful Dead fan. And this thing's gonna run you about $175 online. I'm even kind of considering it because it is that great of a show. So you got that coming out this week. You've also got, so like I said, this is a kind of I guess it's a restocking of the release from earlier this year. And then you got Neil Young official release series discs 22, 23, 24, and 25 coming out. So over the course of the last, I guess, year or so, Reprise has been slowly reissuing all of Neil Young's albums in chronological order. This is the 5th part in that series. This is going to run you about $200 online, but this is 9 LPs, and it includes some of Neil's, I think, some of his best work. You've got Freedom, which was released in 1989. Probably one of his most successful albums. It's got Rock on the Free World on it. In my opinion, it's one of Neil's top 5 albums. You've also got Ragged Glory, which was released in 1990. This version has 4 rare tracks that were included on that album. Then you got Weld, which was released in 1991, which is a live album from the Ragged Glory tour. And then you've got Arc, which was released in 1991, which I had to look up and see what Arc was. I wasn't familiar with it at all. So this is a live companion album to Weld. It's got feedback, improvisations on here. It's got guitar solos and vocal fragments, which I guess could be kind of cool if you're into that kind of stuff. If you're a big Neil Young fan, I think this is something that's definitely geared towards like the hardcore Neil Young fans. So with Arc, it's the first time it's ever been available on vinyl. So you got the new album from Post Malone coming out this week. This is Austin. It's his 5th studio album. It's going to be on forest green vinyl. It's a double LP. It's a lot, though. Rap albums tend to run a little pricier. This thing's going to run you about $46 online. My local record store, I want to say, was like $48 or $49. Even though it's really pricey and it's more than I typically like to spend on new albums, I'm probably gonna pick it up this week. So I guess I'm part of the problem. They've released three singles off this album so far. I've loved all 3 of the tracks on it. And when it comes to Post Malone stuff, I'm kind of hit or miss. And typically, if I like the singles, I like the album. So I'm definitely looking forward to this one. It's this is also the first time in his career he hasn't used any guest appearances on his album. It's just Post. Like I said, it's expensive, but I'm still looking forward to this week. Then you've also got Billy Idol's debut album coming out. This is being reissued. First released back in 1982. This is, from what I'm seeing online, looks like an Amazon exclusive. It's going to run you about $30. This is an interesting album because when it first came out, so when it was released in 82, the first single on it, which is Hot in the City, it was a Hot 100 track. It got some really good airplay, but the album didn't really kind of pick up and take off until the video for White Wedding hit MTV a year later. And once that video came up, I mean, that album was off to the races, and it's done great since then. But it took like about a year for this album to really gain some traction. It's a good album, though. So over the last several months, there's been a bunch of great jazz albums that have been released. You got 2 more coming out this week. The first one, this is Cannonball Adderley Quintet in Chicago. First released back in 1959. This is part of the Verve Acoustic Sound series, which, if you're unfamiliar with these releases, man, these things sound absolutely fantastic. I will say this is the first Verve release that I've seen where it says that it's transferred from the original analog tapes. So I'm assuming that's them admitting that there's a digital step in there. So I guess be kind of forewarned if you've got an issue with that. But this is going to run you about $39 online. The interesting thing about this release is most of the band that backs Cannonball on this album, just a couple months later, would go on to record Kinda Blue with Miles Davis. So that's the kind of quality that he's working with on this album. Yet John Coltrane, Wynton Kelly, Paul Chambers, Jimmy Cobb, a great backing band. So it's definitely a great one to check out. And then the second one, I'm not all that familiar with. It's got a great lineup on here. I'm familiar with the musician. I've never heard any of his music, though. This is Male Waldron Sextet, Male 2, first released back in 1957. This is part of the Kraft Original Jazz Classic series. I think this is a 3rd release that they've done over the last couple of months. Maybe it's the 4th. I'm not really sure, but it's going about $34 online. Like I said, I'm unfamiliar with this album, but man, it's got a great lineup on here. Some of the best jazz musicians of the 50s on here. You got John Coltrane, Ed Thigpen, Idris Suleiman, Jackie McLean, Art Taylor, Bill Hardman. It's just, like I said, kind of like a who's who. This is all taken from the original analog tapes. This is pressed to RTI. These are like, as far as jazz releases go, man, what Kraft is doing with this series, man, these albums sound absolutely fantastic. I don't think you're gonna have any sound issues. I would kind of compare these to a lot of the other like analog productions releases that you're seeing out there on the market. So this week you got a really interesting reissue coming out from Bad Religion. This is Recipe for Hate, released back in 1993. It was their 7th studio album, celebrating its 30th anniversary, and this is on translucent Tiger's Eye vinyl. I didn't know what that was. I had to look it up. It's like this amber looking color. It looks really cool. It's going to run you about $27 online. This is one of Bad Religion's this is probably their most experimental album. There's like some interesting folk influences on here. There's some country influences on here. Stuff you wouldn't necessarily think would be on a Bad Religion album. But so it works on some of the tracks. It's definitely not one of my favorite Bad Religion albums, but there's some really good tracks on here. And it's an album that I think is at least worth having in your collection if you're a Bad Religion fan. So the interesting thing about the artwork on this album, as you can see, it's I had to look up in the background on it because I didn't really fully understand it either. So the people on here, the bodies are of 2 white men who in the 30s were acquitted for murder, acquitted by an all-white jury, and then after their acquittal, they were mocking the media. So that's the picture of the bodies. And then the heads of the 2 individuals are guard dogs from Auschwitz. So it kind of goes along with the Recipe for Hate title of the album. It's really interesting. Like I said, it's an interesting album to at least, I would recommend at least streaming it and checking it out, because like I said, it's an interesting album. It's not what you would typically expect from Bad Religion. Then you've also got Korn Untitled being reissued this week, released back in 2007. It's their 8th studio album. It's a double LP. So the vinyl is black. I think it's on black vinyl, but it's got a glow in the dark cover. Because at first I saw glow in the dark and I thought it was the actual glow in the dark vinyl. It's just the cover that's got a glow in the dark theme to it. And then so I will say that when it comes to Korn, I like their first few albums. And then I kind of lost some interest in them. I remember when this album came out, I listened to it a couple of times. And it's an album where I thought they did a good job. They just it's just an okay kind of album to me. It had a lot of mixed reviews, and I kind of agree with a lot of the reviews. There's some good stuff on here, but there's definitely a lot of really kind of skippable tracks on here. It's going to run you about $40 also. So, for me, it's an album that I think is probably better off just streaming it and checking it out. This week, there's a couple of Prince albums being reissued, and one of them is probably one of the most underrated albums of his career. I'll get to that second, though. The first one, this is Lovesexy, released back in 1988, his 10th studio album. So, after Sign of the Times was released, Prince started working on what would be known as the Black Album. It's a very, very dark album. Some of the darker stuff that he'd done in his career. It's definitely a heavier album at least from what I've been told. And then a week before the album was supposed to be released or go back to the label, the Prince decided to scrap the whole project. He actually demanded that the label destroy all the copies that they had. And then he started working on Lovesexy. Lovesexy is more along the lines of what you would traditionally expect from Prince. It's melodic, it's light, it's catchy, some really great stuff on here. It's going to run you about $26 online though. So it's as far as Prince albums go, it's it's not one of my favorite albums of his, but it's definitely one worth owning. It is a great album. I'd put it probably up in the upper half of Prince releases. And then the second album, this is the one that's really kind of underrated. This is a reissue of Come. It's going to run you about $24 online. It was released back in 1994, his 15th studio album. This would be the last album that Prince would use his name on until 2001. And I think this album really underperformed. I think it was mainly underperformed because it just didn't get any support from the label. The label wasn't really involved. There was really no publicity for it. There was really no pushing it out there. I don't remember any videos or anything off of it. But this is a really underrated album, and if you go back and listen to this album, I would definitely, as far as his 90s work goes, I think it's probably one of his best albums of the 90s. And then the last two on the list, these are both indie exclusive releases from the Black Crowes. So you won't find these on Amazon or any of the big online retailers. These will only be available from your local brick and mortar stores. I'll put links down below. If you don't have a store in your area, you can always pick them up from my favorite local record store, Dearborn Music. one of the best record stores out there. But the first one, this is Warpaint, released back in 2008. It's their 7th studio album. This is going to be on red and white splatter vinyl. It's going to be about $32 online. This was the first Black Crowes album with Luther Dickinson on guitar, Adam McDougall on keyboards. It's a good album, but it's also it's probably one of the more disappointing albums from the Black Crowes. I think it's an album that has some really good tracks on there, and then it has several tracks that I think have the potential to, there could have been huge tracks. And I don't know if it's just like internal struggle within the band or whatever, that it didn't quite work out that way, but it is still a good album if you want to check that one out. And then the last one is Croology, released in 2010 as an acoustic album. This is going to be on white, gold, and black splatter. It's a triple album. It's going to run you about $48 online, which isn't a bad price when you consider you're getting 3 LPs. So this is a really cool release because this is a re-recording of 20 of their biggest tracks from across their career. Like I said, it's like all the songs you would expect to be on there. Then there are some like lesser known tracks that I think are equally as good. But this is a fantastic album. They do a really great job with these re-recordings. I know a lot of times when we talk about bands re-recording music, it's not... normally it's a complete disaster. They don't sound really good. But the way they did these, they weren't trying to like recreate those original tracks. This is all acoustic stuff. It sounds really great. And like I said, even for $48, it's a lot, but you're getting 3 LPs. I think that's a good release. Well, that's all I got for today. Thanks for checking the show out. Like I said, there's about 500 albums coming out this week. I only talked about 14 on the show today, so make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to picking up. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me the old thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.